Overnight loss of money sparks nationwide panic. Shenzhen's permanent population drops for the first time due to economic downturn and order losses. Expert, unusual CCP public opinion emerges as military reunification of Taiwan faces four-line warfare. Blood sweat gloves enter U.S. supply chain. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Overnight loss of money sparks nationwide panic. Recently, there has been an issue in several provinces across China, including Shanghai and Shenzhen, where individual social security accounts have suddenly decreased or even disappeared overnight. In Shenzhen, some netizens reported having paid social security for over 20 years and had a balance of 190,000 yuan in principal, with an additional 120,000 yuan in interest earned over 8 years. In April, their social security balance was 310,000 yuan. However, after the new social security system was launched on May 8, only 190,000 yuan was left in their account, with the interest seemingly disappearing. Many other people have made similar complaints. On May 10, the Shenzhen Social Security Fund Management Bureau responded that the actual amount of money had not decreased, but rather the display rules had changed. Guangdong Province has unified regulations stating that the new social security system only displays the principal amount and not the interest earned. Some self-media outlets have published articles pointing out that if we follow what the Shenzhen Social Security Bureau says, the actual amount of money in the individual social security account has not decreased, and the personal rights and interests of social security are not affected, can we spend the 190,000 yuan as if it were 310,000 yuan? Or is the balance in the account really 190,000 yuan or 310,000 yuan? Is it just a vague and meaningless number that has no practical difference? The article bluntly stated that the explanation from the Social Security Bureau actually confirms everyone's suspicions, which are that the Social Security interest has indeed been taken away. In addition to Shenzhen, when the Shanghai Social Security system resumed operations in April, many individuals reported that their Social Security benefits had been slashed in half, going from 6,000 yuan per month to only 3,000 yuan per month. In Shenzhen and Shanghai, problems with Social Security occurred after it was incorporated into the national plan. The above self-media article goes on to explain that China's Social Security system was initially at the county level, then moved to the city and provincial level. The move to a national plan was due to the increasing scope of Social Security system collapses, starting at the county level, then the provincial level, and eventually forcing the central government to intervene. As a result, the scope of the national plan continued to expand, and now even affluent provinces such as Shanghai and Shenzhen are supporting provinces with large pension deficits. This has caused panic among residents in affluent areas, as they wonder how long they can hold on before being emptied by other regions. The author of this article calculated, using the numbers provided by the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, that an increasing number of provinces are in deficit, and with the support of affluent regions, the National Pension Fund will only be sustainable until 2027. By 2035, the entire National Pension Fund will be exhausted. The CCP is notorious for falsifying data, but even with this in mind, the calculation shows that the main group currently paying into the pension system, those born in the 1980s and 1990s, will not be able to collect their pensions upon retirement. Observers have previously noted that Chinese citizens paying into the pension system are essentially feeding the bureaucratic system of the CCP, with little benefit to individuals. Furthermore, the CCP is considering postponing the retirement age. Shenzhen's permanent population drops for the first time due to economic downturn and order losses. Recently, it was reported that the permanent population of Shenzhen has decreased by 19,800 people, marking the first time since the city's founding in 1979. This number was listed in the Statistical Bulletin of National Economic and Social Development of Shenzhen, which was released on May 8. According to the report, the permanent household population in Shenzhen increased by 270,800 people, while the permanent non-household population decreased by 290,600 people, resulting in a net decrease of 19,800 people in the total permanent population. Prior to 2021, the permanent population of Shenzhen had been increasing steadily. For instance, from 2010 to 2020, the permanent population of Shenzhen increased by a total of 7.1361 million people. On May 11, Dr. Li Songyun, an economics doctoral student who has been closely following the Chinese economy, told Epoch Times, the first decline in Shenzhen's population in decades is mainly due to the closure of many companies and layoffs of employees, leading to a rise in the unemployed population. On the one hand, this is due to the Chinese Communist Party's stringent epidemic control measures and crackdown on the real estate, internet, education, and training industries, which have led to the collapse and layoffs of many private enterprises, making it extremely difficult for college graduates to find employment. On the other hand, the manufacturing supply chain has begun to move out of China, coupled with a decline in external demand, resulting in a significant reduction and closure of factory production lines. If non-local residents cannot find jobs in Shenzhen, they may be forced to leave, which is the main reason for the decrease in the local population. In light of the significant loss of overseas orders, the Shenzhen authorities have initiated efforts to organize companies to compete for orders abroad. As of mid-December 2022, nearly 1,000 Shenzhen enterprises had formed groups to participate in 41 key international exhibitions. However, despite these efforts, the overall environment remains challenging, and the employment situation in Shenzhen continues to deteriorate, leading to a rise in the unemployment rate. In the 2022 statistical bulletin, Shenzhen did not provide information on the unemployment rate as it had in previous years. Instead, it only furnished the number of participants in the unemployment insurance program, which decreased year-on-year by 1.2% to 12.3479 million. Furthermore, government officials did not disclose the unemployment rate for 2022, but only claimed that 180,000 new jobs were created during the year, and the urban surveyed unemployment rate was kept within 5.5%, without disclosing the number of unemployed individuals. At the end of 2021, the official registered urban unemployment rate in Shenzhen was 2.24%. Expert: unusual CCP public opinion emerges as military reunification of Taiwan faces four-line warfare. According to a report by Japanese media outlet Nikkei Asia, an unusual development has occurred in China's online community. Signals have emerged that the previously banned debate on whether the CCP should use force to unify Taiwan is now being allowed. In the past, discussing different viewpoints on the use of force against Taiwan was not permitted, and advocating for attacks or violence against Taiwan was strictly prohibited. However, a previously taboo perspective that emphasizes the impracticality and danger of using force to unify Taiwan has suddenly appeared. In his program Political World on Tianliang Shifan, political commentator and analyst Professor Zhang Tianliang shared his analysis of this phenomenon. He said that there is less than a 1 in a million chance of the CCP militarily invading Taiwan because they would never dare to do so. However, the problem now is that there are discussions online about whether using force to unify Taiwan is feasible or not. The fact that the CCP's censorship agency has not removed such comments suggests that the authorities have intentionally released this signal. According to Zhang, there are two possibilities. First, to pave the way for the G7 summit in Hiroshima, Japan, next Friday, May 19. During the upcoming G7 summit, the industrialized Western countries may pass a stricter policy to contain the CCP. At this time, the CCP released a signal: "We are also hesitant about using force to unify Taiwan, and we think it is not very feasible." By doing so, it hopes to provide a way out for the G7 countries and prevent them from developing more stringent policies. This is one of the motivations behind the CCP's release of this news. Second, to prepare for U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to China. Zhang said the depth of this topic is quite profound. There are some anonymously written articles that thoroughly reject the CCP's hawkish, wolf warrior diplomacy. Although their content is slightly different, their titles and tones are becoming increasingly strong. These articles mention that if the CCP were to use force to invade Taiwan, it would face the possibility of being attacked on all sides. These 4 battlefronts are: the CCP would face resistance from the joint forces of the United States, Japan, and Taiwan in the Taiwan Strait and surrounding areas. In the Korean Peninsula, it would be against the US and South Korean military. In the South China Sea and the South Pacific, it would have to confront the US and Australian military. The CCP's military would have to face off against the Indian military at the southwestern border. Therefore, the author of this article believes that if the CCP were to use force to invade Taiwan, it would be in a predicament of being attacked on all sides. It can be said that the author of this article fully recognizes the current geopolitical relationship and the development of the international situation. If the CCP is forced to fight on multiple fronts, its military forces would definitely be dispersed and at a clear disadvantage. The reason why this type of news can be spread is obviously to weaken the enemy's morale and destroy one's prestige. In the past, the Communist Party viewed the reunification of Taiwan as an unquestionable historical mission of the CCP, and anyone who questioned whether they could win or whether they should fight would be criticized. Now, there has been a sudden turn, and the reasons behind it are, as Professor Zhang has just analyzed, preparing for the G7 summit and preparing for Blinken's visit to China, hoping that the G7 will formulate policies that are more friendly to the CCP. Deterring a preemptive strike by the CCP. Some people may be very concerned about whether the CCP might try to deceive Taiwan's military and the US by sending false signals. On May 11th, a bill was introduced in the U.S. Congress by Senator Marco Rubio, which is called 2023 Deters CCP Preemptive Strike and requires the U.S. Department of Defense to develop and strengthen plans to protect aircraft shelters in the Indo-Pacific region. According to some think tanks in the United States, before the CCP invades Taiwan, it may consider that the U.S. may intervene, so it needs to use some preemptive strategies to destroy U.S. aircraft carriers in the Pacific and some U.S. air bases in the Pacific before the armed invasion of Taiwan. The bill proposed by Rubio aims to protect all U.S. aircraft shelters in the Indo-Pacific region, including airports and aircraft carriers. If this bill is passed, the U.S. Department of Defense will be required to conduct a comprehensive investigation into the aircraft shelters of all kinds of U.S. aircraft deployed in the first, second, and third island chains in the Indo-Pacific region, and provide a detailed list. The so-called first island chain starts in Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan and ends in the Philippines, which locks the CCP inside. To get out of the Pacific, the CCP must break through the blockade of the first island chain, which is easy to block. As for the second and third island chains, they are just concepts and have no real significance. Places like Hawaii and Guam are located in vast Pacific waters, and it is impossible to block them. The third island chain is even more irrelevant and extends all the way to San Francisco. Therefore, for the United States, it is very important to defend the first island chain strategically. The bill proposed by Rubio requires the U.S. Department of Defense to classify all aircraft shelters protecting planes in the Indo-Pacific region and provide specific measures to protect these aircraft shelters, enhancing the U.S.'s survival capability against CCP missiles, drones, and other forms of attack. The Senate Armed Services Committee also needs to examine this draft bill. Zhang stated that the U.S. is too vigilant against the CCP and will not give up just because the CCP makes certain gestures. Blood sweat gloves enter U.S. supply chain. On May 4th, the American media outlet Wisconsin Watch published an investigative report exposing the renowned century-old American company and publicly traded corporation, Milwaukee Tool, for sourcing blood and sweat gloves from Qishan Prison in Hunan, China. This revelation has sparked international attention and concern regarding products made by forced labor under the Chinese Communist Party. According to the report, after a prolonged and in-depth investigation, it was discovered that the gloves provided by Milwaukee Tool's Chinese supplier were produced through forced labor in the prison. Many of the incarcerated individuals suffered from illnesses due to the intense labor and pollution. The investigators interviewed individuals who were subjected to forced labor in Qishan prison, secretly investigated Shanghai Select Safety Products, the supplier for Milwaukee Tool, and carefully analyzed government regulatory documents in the United States. The investigation revealed that Shanghai Select Safety Products, which has a cooperative relationship with Qishan Prison, manufactures high-performance gloves for Milwaukee Tool. The investigative report also interviewed Li Mingche, a Taiwanese NGO worker who had been imprisoned in Qishan Prison. Several years ago, he was sentenced by the CCP on charges of subverting the state power. Li Mingche revealed that during his incarceration, he and other prisoners were forced to produce gloves, working approximately 13 hours a day, 7 days a week, and earning only 48 cents per day. They were only allowed to rest during the Chinese New Year period. Wisconsin Watch also interviewed another inmate using the pseudonym Su Luan. He disclosed that many incarcerated individuals developed eczema in the hot and humid prison factory due to inhaling a significant amount of fabric dust. He himself suffered from allergies. Li Mingche and Su Luan identified several models of Milwaukee Tool gloves available in the market as the ones they had produced during their time in prison. They also revealed that the supplier for Milwaukee Tool is Shanghai Select Safety Products. They had heard about this company while in prison and saw its name on the orders. Regarding this matter, Li Mingche expressed to Radio Free Asia that Qishan Prison treats the incarcerated individuals as skilled workers and forces them to produce goods. The blood sweatshops also falsify records. Many suppliers are driven by high profits and have entered into secret cooperation agreements with prison factories. This type of cooperation is not disclosed in supply documents, so the issue of forced labor remains unknown to the outside world. In 2019, the World Organization to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong, WOIPFG, conducted an independent investigation into products made by forced labor in CCP prisons and labor camps. The investigation report revealed that the CCP has long engaged in forced labor in prisons, severely violating human rights, and engaging in economic aggression against the international community. The report disclosed that the subjects of enslavement include Falun Gong practitioners, human rights activists, lawyers, rights defenders, underground church members, Uyghurs, and others, ranging in age from 16 to 70. Many of them are forced to endure brutal enslavement for 12 to 19 hours per day. When the production tasks are heavy, they are even required to work overtime for several days and nights without rest. The report pointed out that, according to incomplete information obtained through investigations, there are currently at least 681 state-owned prison enterprises in China. Due to the highly centralized and unified management of these enterprises, labor resources are costless slaves who endure forced labor, challenging their physical and psychological limits and torture. In 2003, the CCP separated prison enterprises from the prisons and established new state-owned, wholly owned prison companies and branches. The legal representatives of prison enterprises at all levels are held by party and government officials at various levels, forming a national slave labor industry that is highly unified in planning, allocation, and management from the CCP Central Committee to the grassroots level. The CCP government provides these enterprises with numerous preferential policies to stimulate and encourage the growth of such industries and attract foreign cooperation. Under the protection of these preferential policies, some prison enterprises directly advertise in investment promotion advertisements, attracting foreign investment by highlighting their location in prison and labor camp areas with low-cost labor from incarcerated individuals. This has led to the astonishing scale of slave labor enterprises. For example, Hangzhou Zishine Industrial Company, Limited has 38 prisons under its control, with more than 40,000 slave laborers. It engages in the processing and export of clothing, with 90% of its products being exported. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.